Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 15th Annual Showcase of Undergraduate Scholars. This is session 2 with projects representing honors and education. It is with great joy that the Office of Undergraduate Research welcomes you as we come together today to celebrate the remarkable achievements of our undergraduate researchers and our devoted mentors. With this session, we have 3 presenters and but before we get started, we have a little bit of housekeeping. This presentation is being recorded. All of the videos will be uploaded to YouTube next week, and we will gladly share those links with you. The videos will be uploaded by sessions and by days. All questions are encouraged. Presenters, you are encouraged to also ask other presenters questions. You all will simply unmute yourselves to ask. Our virtual audience will simply type your questions using the Q&A feature found in your toolbar, either at the top or the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, our very first presenter is Carmen. Carmen, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, hope everyone can see that. Let me know if you cannot. My name is Carmen Lair, and I worked with Dr. Ruth Brown this semester for my research, and today I'm going to be discussing my work on a bilingual approach to combat COVID-19 in young adults in the Latinx community. When COVID-19 first emerged, there was an abundance of information put out to the community to outreach for resources and simply just inform the community about COVID-19. And I noted that this information was not readily available in other languages. After taking Hispanic Kentucky with Dr. Brown, I was very interested in finding out how our large Latinx community here in Lexington was being impacted by COVID-19. And what I found was that the Latinx population was taking a greater hit by this pandemic than any other group. And as a student wellness ambassador, I recognized the need for students and young adults to get informed. My research focused on what caused the disparate rates of COVID-19 for the Latinx community and what is an effective way to provide information and resources to this group and the young adult population. So I decided to create a website. It's called Latinx COVID-19, and it's a bilingual website intended to be an easy resource that can educate and connect users to up-to-date information and community organizations. My plan was to include informative pages where users can learn more about at-risk groups, the disparities within the Latinx community, community organizations that they could benefit from in regards to COVID-19 as well. So when I started this project in January, we were at a very different place in this pandemic than what we are today. For example, when I first started my research, we did not have a vaccine available. And now we have 3 different vaccines being administered to the community. So it's clear that this information and resources are changing every day. And it's even more important that at-risk groups and underserved groups have a place to get informed and get connected so that they can do their part in combating this virus. So today I'm going to talk about the structure of my website, the components of it, and how it can be developed further. Then I'll go into more details of what I found to be contributing to the increased risks within these groups. I'll talk more about the resources that I provided within the site and why I believe them to be the most beneficial for this audience and all users. And finally, I'll conclude with what I believe we should be doing next in order to decrease the risk among young adults and the Latinx population. So this is my About Us page within the site. In this page, I address the target audience as young adults in the Latinx community. I outline the basics behind what COVID-19 is, and I give an overview of how users can benefit from the website. Throughout the site, what you'll find is, while not all users may be within this target audience, all users can benefit. I've included very specific local resources, but also included ways to find testing centers, vaccine locations near you so that anyone from any location can find resources for themselves. However, my research did root from the question of how is COVID-19 affecting the Latinx community. So here in this bar graph, you see the percent of COVID-19 cases within the US in blue, and the percent representation of the population in the United States in orange. According to the CDC, the Latinx population or the Latinx community makes up about 19% of the population, while they are accounting for over 26% of our COVID-19 cases. So that leads us to the rest of this page, discussing some of the factors that I found most affecting these disparate rates. On this page, it's called Why Does It Matter? I go into detail about job security, living arrangements, food security, and healthcare inequalities, and how those have all had significant impacts on the Latinx community. So obviously, there are more at risk than just the Latinx community. On this page, I go into detail of how not only the Latinx population is at a heightened risk, but also how the young adult population faces a higher risk as well. So you may wonder if you don't identify with either of these groups, how is the site useful to you? I'll start off by just saying that the only way to decrease the spread of a respiratory virus is for us to all do our part. And so this can only be done with a well-informed community, and knowing why these groups are at a higher risk can help us combat these factors. So what can you do? These are like the headings of some of my pages on the website. So what can you do? You can start by perusing through the site and get informed. You can take preventative measures such as wearing a mask, social distancing. Now you can even go get your vaccine. Like I mentioned in the beginning, this is something that has more recently become available towards the end of my research. So the site does contain small information on where to go and where you can learn more, but I didn't go into detailed information myself, unfortunately, based on the timeline of my research. What I did include is a variety of resources specifically helpful for the student population at UK, the UK population, community, staff, and employees, and the Lexington community. And a large portion of my research went into what is the most effective way to get this information out to the young adult population as well as the Latinx community. So in efforts to strive towards a more well-informed community, I took a look at some community organizations here in Kentucky, and I chose 4 to include within my site: Radio Lex, La Esquina out of Louisville, actually, Global Lex, and the Lexington Fayette County Health Department. Now, in picking these organizations, I was looking for 2 things in particular. Do they reach my target audience, young adults in the Latinx community? And do they provide current useful information and outreach? Radio Lex, La Esquina, and the Lexington Fayette County Health Department all have great Facebook pages. I feel like that's a really great mode of communication that's easy to navigate, and social media is an easy way to reach young adults. All 4 of these organizations provide their information in Spanish. Now, how do these organizations help us combat this pandemic? As I previously said, a well-informed community is key. So these organizations do a great job at providing up-to-date information on testing centers, vaccine locations, even current news surrounding spikes in their locations around the globe, and also new vaccine information. Another special thing about these organizations is that they promote one another as well. So they're not competing for more followers on Facebook or more likes or views. They're collaborating together to get the best information out to the community and extend their knowledge to each other in order to share the best information to their viewers. So what is next? My website and these organizations will not be the cure to COVID-19, but what it does create is a place where users can find out more information on how to do their part in combating the virus and take the necessary precautions based on community information. For example, right now it's more important than ever that individuals know where they can get vaccinated, and maybe they're questioning getting vaccinated. So it's important that we provide resources where they can learn more. Now, my biggest concern is the mode in which these resources are being communicated. I think that moving forward, we need to encourage outreach via a more generationally appropriate mode of communication. I'll be the first to say that Facebook is not my go-to place for social media. While it's helpful and those organizations do a great job at keeping them running and providing information through there, it's not my go-to. I also don't turn on the news every day. So I think I can't say for certain what the best option is moving forward for targeting the young adult and Latinx community, but I know that short videos, infographics, even pop-up stations in the community, as well as ads on other popular social media platforms is a great start. In the end, the goal is just to create a community that's well informed and has easy access to places of outreach where they can at least get pointed in the right direction of where they need more information. I hope that my website provides some awareness to the need for more outreach places that are user friendly and can help these at-risk groups and more. So that is all. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I also have my website that I can like peruse through if you all want to see like some of the pages like live.
Yes, please, Carmen. And while she's doing that, for our attendees, if you all have questions for Carmen, please go ahead and type those in the Q&A. Since it does take just a little bit to come through.
This is my homepage. I'll just like real quickly go through what pages I have, and then if anyone has like specific pages you want me to go to. So I have my homepage, my About Us page, who is at risk, why does it matter, what can I do, and within there we have more resources. And then I have community organizations and then my sources.
I have a question for you. Since you've got your website pulled up, did you have previous website development experience prior to this?
No, I did not. And so what I really was focusing on was that was one of the struggles with creating this website was I wanted to make it bilingual, but I've never created a website. So what you'll find throughout the website is what I decided on lastly is that everything in English you can find on the left and everything in Spanish you can find on the right. So it should be hopefully user-friendly in that sense of if you're speaking English, everything should be at your reach on the right. There's all these drop tabs. So like for job security, it drops down in English and job security in Spanish on the right side. So I didn't have much experience. Dr. Brown had done some Google sites, and so she was super helpful in figuring out what's user-friendly and what works. But yeah, I didn't have much experience before this.
So, and I do have another question for you. So are you monitoring analytics for your site to evaluate reach and engagement since you talked about engaging your community partners?
I have not looked into like looking at engagement within it, but I think like my goal is, so I have had other students who are working with these organizations that I actually talked about and linked in this site. And so what's great about places like Radio Lex and La Esquina and all that is they actually have podcasts and stuff. And so they pull in community speakers. And I think that that's like the best way to promote it. I don't have analytics on like how many viewers I'm getting and whatnot, but I think that promoting it via these platforms that are really pulling actual people from our community and getting real feedback from them will help me get, that is a way that I will help get feedback on the website. And like I said, updating the website as best I can for the ever-changing parts of, I literally added the vaccine information probably in like the last week of me wrapping up my research. So that's kind of how it's gone, but yes.
Well, you do have a question from Dr. Brown. She asks, what was your biggest challenge in creating the website and or finding information to include?
I would say in creating the website, my biggest hurdle was figuring out what's the best way that people can navigate. Like I said, finding like modes of communication that are easy. Like I chose a website because I know a 30 to 40 page research paper is not going to be something that young adults or anyone wants to read. So finding a way that the website isn't too many words and it's not too textbooky, that people are willing to read the short bits here and there and get informed, but not be too overwhelming to where they're like, oh, forget that information, that's too much. And then choosing what information to include, I think that that really came from my experience, knowing like I am a young adult, and through Dr. Brown's class, we did some service and I was able to go into different parts that are heavily populated with Latinx community members. I feel that that's kind of how I picked what I thought was important. So like, for example, under my resource tab, I did a lot with like testing centers, because one thing we talked about a lot in my Hispanic Kentucky class was when you Google search free COVID tests in Spanish, Las Pruebas de COVID-19 in Lexington, there weren't that many options in Spanish. Even though you do in the Google search in Spanish, it still is hard to navigate Spanish testing centers with information in Spanish. So that was really like my experiences and the things that I had like come across that I thought were important. That's kind of how I chose where to go from here. And I did that for obviously in English and Spanish, but definitely was encounters that I felt were a bigger problem for young adults and the Latinx community.
Very nice. Very nice. This is great research, great presentation,
Thank you.
fantastic website,
Thank you.
very valuable, and extremely relevant. You did a great job, Carmen.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And if you can email this link to me, I have a lot of great friends in Fayette County Public Schools that
Yes.
are doing a lot of community outreach that I think this website would be heavily shared and extremely valuable to them as well.
Great. That would be great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate your research, and Dr. Brown, thank you so much as a mentor as well. And we are going to continue on with our next presenter. Tom, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Then please share your screen whenever you are ready.
All right. You all see that?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. So my presentation is on a review of factors that affect the pre-medical student experience. My name is Tom Calderaro. My esteemed research mentor is Dr. F. Douglas Scutchfield. We also had the help of a health sciences librarian here at UK, Lauren Robinson, and also a recently graduated medical student, Dr. Carter Bauman. And so we had three main goals doing this research project. We wanted to, in general, better the pre-medical student experience by allowing them to be more successful in medical school and getting accepted into medical school. We also wanted to recommend change to undergraduate programs that better facilitate pre-medical student success based on peer-reviewed current research. And then we want to identify areas that require more research so that we can have actual peer-reviewed facts behind all of the programs that we are implementing to help pre-med students. And so our overall research question was, what benefits and hinders pre-med students in general? And so to do that, we wanted to do a systematic review of the current literature pertaining to the pre-medical curriculum in the United States. And so to do this, we had to define specific inclusion and exclusion criteria for the papers that we were going to be looking at. One specific criteria was we wanted them to be very current. So we looked from 2015 to present day articles. And then we also want to look at articles that have specific outcomes of med school success, specific measures, and then they have to have a specific pre-medical factor also. And then we excluded articles that didn't include only undergraduate students. So if they included high school students or post-bac students, then we had to exclude those as well. And we wanted the population to be generalizable to undergraduate students. So if they looked at only specific subsets of the pre-medical student population, then we had to exclude those as well. And so we searched several databases with terms relevant to our study with pre-med success. And so there were two stages to the review. We did a title abstract review, and then we went and did a full text review following that. And the relevant data, then we extracted and sort of synthesized into specific categories so that we could summarize the data in a succinct way. So the results of how things went, we started with 846 articles. And so then we narrowed it down to our specific time frame before we did the title abstract review. And we had 209 articles to go through and review the title and the abstract. From there, we eliminated about 3/4 of the articles, and we got it down to 51 articles to do a full text review. So then me, Carter, and Dr. Scutch all went through these full text articles. We each read 2/3 of the articles. And so each article had 2 reviewers, and we had to come to a consensus about whether to include or exclude that article. And then we ended up with 20 articles that are included in our final analysis. And so of those 20 articles, we grouped them into categories. The general categories of pre-medical interventions were shadowing, social capital, research, academic factors, service, and a miscellaneous category. And so I'll go through those specifically on the next slides. We also looked at the strength of evidence for each of the articles. We put them in a low, mediocre, or high rank. You can see there were 0 articles in the high rank. And so a high rank would have meant that it was a randomized controlled trial, or it was something that showed causation. And so there were no articles that showed causation. The majority of them fell into the mediocre rank, which was an association between the pre-medical factor like shadowing and some sort of measure of success in medical school or beyond medical school. So for example, it could be shadowing increased your interest in medicine, or research increased your acceptance into medical school. And then there were 5 articles that were given a low rank, and that low rank meant that it was mainly qualitative data, and it was sort of highly subjective. So we wanted to give that as a qualifier. So now I'm going to talk about shadowing specifically. So there were several articles about shadowing. They mainly showed that shadowing increased students' interest in medical school and sort of kept them on that pre-medical track, while also increasing their clinical knowledge. And then some qualitative data, which again, we have to take with a grain of salt because it is coming directly from students and their own reflections. Students recommended shadowing to other pre-med students, so they thought it's helpful on their own pre-med path. And students reflected that shadowing gave them new medical perspectives. So again, students think it's helpful on their pre-medical path, but that doesn't necessarily translate to any statistics that say they're more successful in medical school and beyond. And on the research side of things, college laboratory research apprenticeships and also first-year undergraduate research experiences both were associated with an increased acceptance into medical school. And so more studies are definitely necessary because, for example, those specific studies with the research apprenticeships and the first-year experiences, they only looked at one institution with one specific program. And so we need more research to sort of go in and dive in and look at multiple institutions and make sure that that is a strong association across the board. The next 2 factors are social capital and other academic factors. So social capital, if you're unfamiliar with that term, it's basically the connections that you make, the network that you have as a pre-medical student. So there were several papers that had to do with the associations with other people throughout your pre-med experience. Mentoring from current medical students allowed pre-medical students to maintain their medical interest. And parental support also played a key role in maintaining your medical interest. And then peer networks between other pre-med students also allowed them to stay on the pre-medical path and maintain that interest in medicine. And so building a strong network seems to be something that would be associated with success going into medical school and applying to medical school. And then looking at our other academic factors. These are sort of have a high variability on what they're looking at. We have a pre-med anatomy course, and taking pre-med anatomy courses actually did not help you in medical school anatomy unless you took a significant amount, 3 or more courses in undergrad. Then showed a slight help in medical school anatomy. So for pre-medical students, we would recommend that you would only take medical anatomy to prepare you for medical school if you were going to take like 3 or 4 courses. And then sociology courses also helped students better prepare for their career. But again, that's qualitative data and subjective to their own experiences. So, and then also a master's program in undergrad, coupled with your baccalaureate degree, increased medical school performance. And then GPA in medical school, this is probably one of the strongest correlations that's in the pre-medical curriculum, but they're correlated to medical school GPA and test scores also. And then something that I found really interesting is that the humanities and social sciences degrees, they had no effect on medical school test scores. So if you got into medical school and you had one of these degrees as an undergrad, then your performance was about the same, but having that degree in undergrad increased your interpersonal skills. And so obviously as a physician, you want to have you want to be very personal, you want to have these good social skills. And so humanities and social science degrees would actually be very good for medical schools to look to accept many students for, and for also undergraduate students, if they're interested in a humanities or social science degree, to pursue, because that'll help them later on in their career. Okay, now we have our service and miscellaneous categories. So the service was, there was 2 types of service in 2 different papers. So there were student-run clinics, and that type of service helped develop career skills and find mentors for pre-medical students. And then there was also service learning programs. Well, there was one specific program with students who helped dementia patients, and that really helped reinforce their interest in medicine. And so again, there needs to be more research looking at different types of service. Burnout were negatively associated with medical school interest. So this might be a good idea to target mental health in undergraduate pre-medical students, because having poor mental health can be associated with losing interest in medical school and changing your career. And then gap years were also shown to have a decrease in burnout in medical school. And so it was actually proportional to the number of gap years that you took. So if a student took 1 gap year, it helped decrease their burnout in medical school. But if they took 2 gap years or 3 gap years, it helped even more. And then also gender associated factors can also impact a student's medical career interests. So mainly in female students, they're sort of discouraged from going into STEM fields because of the stigma around that. And so the main takeaways, honestly, the biggest takeaway is that much more data is needed to properly evaluate all these factors and how they affect the student success for pre-medical students, because pre-medical students are, I'm a pre-med student, and a lot of pre-medical students are told, you know, you need to do this, you need to do this to be successful. But the data out there right now shows a lot of associations between a few specific things, but a lot of things that we're told to do have no data to support them or are only associative data. And so maybe the best students are doing these things because they're being told to, but maybe that's actually not impacting their success getting into medical school and their success in medical school. So we need to have more rigorous research to support these pre-medical interventions. And so the main ones that were supported by the data were shadowing, research, service, and building a support system and building that social capital. And they seem to be the most important non-academic factors in providing students success in getting into medical school and in medical school. And then a variety of other non-academic or a variety of other academic factors and miscellaneous factors exist. But again, there's more research that we need to do in order to narrow those down and make sure that they are having the causal effect that we want. Okay, and here is my long list of references. I can take questions now if anyone wants.
What a great presentation and valuable research. Before I ask my question, if anybody has, if any of our attendees have any questions, please enter them using the Q&A button. My first question for you, Tom, is while the questions are coming in. First, how did you get connected with your research opportunity and your mentor?
Yeah, so actually, my research mentor, Dr. Scotchfield, I've worked with him since my sophomore year. We created an organization that sort of helped pre-med and other pre-health students. And so I feel like my whole undergraduate career, I've sort of been trying to tackle this problem. And then when I was looking for something to do with my capstone, we were already had been working together. So I thought it was a great idea to actually dig into the research and look at what peer-reviewed studies have tried to tackle this problem as well. So yeah, I've sort of been looking to solve this problem for 3 or 4 years now.
Interesting. So from all of your, the data and the information that you collected, what did you find that was most surprising?
Yeah, I found that it was, I thought it was surprising that the humanities and social science majors didn't have any difference in medical school performance, because medical school is very science-based, and a lot of pre-med students they major in biology, they major in hard chemistry classes and hard rigorous science courses. And so all the humanities and social science majors had to take those courses, but they don't have as much background. So I would have thought that they would have maybe struggled at the beginning of medical school and then got the hang of it eventually. But the data showed that it was really equivalent test scores across the board for the social science and humanities majors. And so, yeah, that was something that was very surprising to me.
That was one of the surprising things as you were going through your presentation. And I was also surprised to hear that unless you take more than 3 anatomy classes, that it doesn't really benefit you.
Yeah, I've talked to some faculty at the UK Medical School, and I think that for their opinion is that the medical school anatomy is so rigorous and specific that having a previous anatomy course doesn't make much of a difference, because it's such a different level of coursework.
Very nice. What do you think was, since you've been doing research longer than just a semester or 2, what's been the most exciting aspect of doing research for you?
Yeah, I think it's actually discovering those things that are sort of counterintuitive. Because when you really dig in and look at data, and you talk to people who are experienced in different fields, that's when you find the associations that are sort of counterintuitive, or that sort of don't go along with what you would think things are. And so finding those surprising facts is actually something that I've liked a lot.
Nice. Does anybody else have any other questions for Tom? If so, please type them in, or if any of our panelists have questions, you can unmute and ask them. Okay. Well, if not, thank you so much, Tom. Great research, great presentation. Dr. Scotchfield, I see that you are in attendance, so thank you so much for your support as a mentor and supporting undergraduate research initiatives here at UK.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you. And without further ado, we are going on to our next group of presenters, Olivia and Lucy. And are you all ready to present?
Yes, I think we are.
Okay.
Yes, I cannot start my video. It says the host has disabled it.
Can you try again since I just stopped screen sharing?
Yeah, it's still not working.
Okay,
I can try to log out and log back in if that.
try it now.
Um, it still won't let me. I can do it without video. If that's easiest.
The theme of today is pivot.
Are you ready, Lucy?
Yes.
Okay. Let me close this. Okay, so my name is Olivia Huffman.
And my name is Lucy Hargis.
Our co-authors on this project are Kayla Ford, Jae Yoon Han, and Dr. Ellen Usher. And for this study, we investigated why undergraduate students might feel dissatisfied with their course performance in the context of COVID-19. So imagine you just received this grade. How would you feel? What if I told you the test was on quantum physics? What if I told you that you had not prepared for this exam at all? As I went through these hypotheticals, did your opinion of the B change? This cognitive process of determining satisfaction in performance is what we wanted to investigate in this study. This study investigates the way students frame and make sense of their own performances. Performance has been shown to predict motivation and learning and their subsequent engagement and effort. Specifically, when students are satisfied with their performance, they tend to also have higher grades.
We situated our study in Bandura's social cognitive theory, which suggests that environmental, personal, and behavioral factors are all reciprocally related to each other. For example, the global pandemic forced many undergraduate courses into online formats this fall, which changed the learning environments. This may have affected students' personal factors like motivation and, in turn, their academic behaviors like studying. Additionally, these three factors may influence course satisfaction. Researchers have found that course satisfaction is influenced by a number of factors, including course performance, course expectations, and motivation. In general, there are positive relationships between these factors and satisfaction. However, this relationship has not been tested in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The purpose of this study was to better understand the factors that influence student satisfaction with their performance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, we were interested in students who were extremely dissatisfied with their performance, because those who are extremely dissatisfied might have had worse academic outcomes. This led us to our current research questions. Research question 1 asked, what are students' responses for feeling highly dissatisfied with their course performance in the fall of 2020? Our second research question asked, to what extent do students' reasons relate to personal, environmental, or behavioral factors? To answer these questions, we surveyed nearly 6,000 undergraduate students at a large land-grant university at the end of their fall 2020 semester. And we asked them, how satisfied are you with your performance in their specific course? Students saw their specific course names where you now see brackets. Students answered from extremely dissatisfied to extremely satisfied. As I mentioned, we wanted to focus on the students who reported they were extremely dissatisfied with their performance. Of the nearly 6,000 students who responded to this item, 297 indicated that they were extremely dissatisfied. These students were then asked, why were you extremely dissatisfied with your performance? Students' responses to this open-ended item were the data used for this study. So responses to the open-ended items were pulled into Excel and analyzed for themes, which were translated using into a coding guide.
Using that coding guide, 2 researchers coded all responses, reaching inter-rater agreement. Ultimately, 12 themes emerged, which you can see here. In this graphic, the larger a word is, the more often that code was assigned. As you can see, students most often referenced performance and course-related factors when explaining their dissatisfaction. Over the next few slides, we're going to walk you through some of these themes. First, we noticed that students were indicating that their behaviors like performance, effort, and self-regulation had made them extremely dissatisfied. For example, one student said they struggled to keep up with the workload in managing the course. Next, students were referencing environmental factors like difficulty, life situations, or issues related to the course itself. For example, one student said that if their class was in person, they would have received a higher grade. The online format was hard for them. Finally, many students reported feeling extremely dissatisfied with their performance because of personal factors like motivation, perceived ability, or mental health. For example, one student said they tried but cried a lot, when another student said they felt like they couldn't comprehend the content no matter what they did.
Although the previous slides displayed responses with only one code, most responses were highly complex, requiring 2 or more codes. Take this response, for example. I did not try my hardest when I should have. I procrastinated and didn't do well. Not a shocker. I am not great at online. That is why I registered for this class in the beginning, because it was supposed to be in person. This seemingly simple response was coded as effort, self-regulation, performance, perceived ability, and course-related factors. So this 3-sentence response reflected 5 different codes which spanned behavioral, environmental, and personal related factors. Although we have only pulled one example here, this complexity is reflected throughout the entire data set.
Many students indicated that they were extremely dissatisfied because of their performance or grade, which led us to ask, were these students objectively performing poorly? And the answer is not necessarily. As you can see here, there's a normal distribution of course grades across the extremely dissatisfied group. Notably, around 30% of students who reported feeling extremely dissatisfied with their performance received an A or B in their course. It's important to note, though, that students rated their course satisfaction 2 weeks prior to receiving their final grades in the course.
So what does this mean for students, teachers, and researchers in education? First, feeling satisfied with one's performance might predict motivation and emotions independent of actual grades received in the course. In addition, course satisfaction might be influenced by a multitude of different environmental, behavioral, and personal factors. Second, for teachers, this means that they should check in on all students regardless of grades. Teachers should be checking on performance markers and students' beliefs and satisfaction. Finally, we hope to expand this study by investigating the full range of student satisfaction ratings, both high and low, and their relationship to motivation and achievement. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please ask away or send us an email. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy and Olivia. Very nice presentation. Very interesting research. If any of our attendees have questions, please feel free to type those using the Q&A button in your toolbar. And while the questions are coming in, oh, it looks like we have one. What kind of classes were students in?
So students were in a variety of classes, from like STEM type subjects all the way to like humanities. And we decided not to break it down into like specific courses, just because it wasn't as like generalizable to the entire like undergrad population. But that's something that we wanted to look at in the future, was like some course related differences if those exist. So
Can you see that, Olivia? Can you read the question out loud since this is being recorded?
Oh, yeah. So the question is from Yen is, I'm interested if perhaps you found different results depending on whether classes were online, in person, or hybrid. Do you think you would find any? This is something that we could look at, and I think Dr. Usher actually is looking at, she just presented yesterday actually on some different modality information that they found and throughout this entire extensive survey. But we didn't look at it for this, but that's definitely something that we could do. And I think you probably would. Actually, I feel like you wouldn't see any differences, because if you saw the distribution of students who were extremely dissatisfied, you had a range of grades from and it was a pretty normal distribution. So I think online or different modality might not be the best insight into how students are feeling. I mean, I definitely think it could have an impact, but I think there are many different factors into why students are rating their extremely dissatisfied performance.
From your results, it looked like it showed 70% female of your respondents, 70% female, 30% male. Was that correct, Olivia?
Yes, that was correct.
Was that surprising to you all from the result or the answers that you were given from the respondents, that percentage of respondents?
So yes, because if you look at the overall sample, it had a 64% female and 36% male. And so it was a slightly larger number for female students. And I mean, we'd love to see a more equal distribution of gender just in responses in general. So yeah, I think that is an interesting result.
So what do you think was most promising aspect of your research?
I think something that was promising is that course satisfaction isn't solely dependent on how you're doing academically. There's a variety of factors that play a role in how you feel you're doing in a class. And I think that's where teachers can come in and help students maybe boost their self-efficacy or their motivation or other factors related to their academic achievement.
Yeah, Olivia, I agree with you on that. I think it's really interesting to see that it's not just all about, the grade you received in the course at the end of the semester. It's about overall how people felt, how they did, how much they believed in themselves, what was going through their heads. So there were so many things that went into it that I think this is good insight for students and teachers in general, just to think about when going through a semester.
Now, did you all assist with coding, or did somebody else code?
No, so Kayla and I actually, and Jaeyoon, so Jaeyoon and I and Kayla all kind of created a coding scheme, and then Kayla and I coded all of the responses, and then we're planning on coding the whole sample of 6,000, but that was obviously a larger task, so we're doing that next.
So what was the most challenging part of coding?
I think finding inter-rater reliability, especially because these codes were so complex and could be interpreted in different ways. So getting our code book down of what we were coding each response as. And eventually we obviously reached a point where we were reaching agreeability, and that was really cool. And it was cool to analyze all of the different responses and see what students are actually saying. I had never done qualitative work before, and so it was a cool experience for me, and definitely a learning experience.
Okay, and so can both you and Lucy talk about how you all got connected with your research experience and opportunity and mentor?
Yeah, I can go first since mine's probably shorter. I wasn't super involved on this project specifically. I've actually been working on my own senior honors thesis, but I wanted to jump in and help Olivia out for this showcase. But I got involved pretty much by being a research assistant to Dr. Usher. I helped out a lot when they were administering the survey back in the fall. And so I got to see a lot of kind of the live action results and answers coming in from students, which was really cool. So I kind of wanted to hop on the project and just see what they found.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think Lucy and I both have been involved with Dr. Usher's lab for a while. I know I started my sophomore year. I think you're probably similar, Lucy, but and so we've kind of like seen this study develop and grow. And for us, like for me, this is my last presentation for Dr. Usher. So I think it was just a fun way to like see what students were actually saying because it related to us. And it was interesting to do because you don't really know how people are going to rate their satisfaction until you actually look into it. And so that was super interesting. And really just a fun experience for us and a way to give back to Dr. Usher. So
Nice. Well, thank you both for being here, for presenting. Thank you actually to all of our students and for your presentations, for your hard work and your research. And thank you also to our attendees for being here and the mentors in attendance for your support. Thank you all for participating in Showcase. Olivia, I know this is your last, and I'm not sure about our other students, but thank you all for being here. I'm glad that you all were able to present and attend. Session 3 today is our final session of Showcase 2021, and it will start at 1:30 this afternoon right here. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. You all have a great day.